Hello everyone, it's Myung-Jan. Today I am going to read S667 Charlotte's Web, The Hour of Triumph. Special announcement, said the loudspeaker in a pompous voice. The management of the fair takes great pleasure in presenting Mr. Homer Zuckerman and his famous pig. The truck bearing this extraordinary animal is now approaching the infield. Kindly stand back and give the truck room to proceed. In a few months, the pig will be unloaded in the special judging ring in front of the grandstand, where a special word will be made. Will the crowd please make way and let the truck pass? Thank you. Wilbur trembled and heard this speech. He felt happy but dizzy. Truck crept along slowly in low speed. Crowds of people surrounded it, and Mr. Edible had to drive very carefully in order not to run over anybody. At last he managed to reach the judge's stand. Avery jumped out and lowered the tailgate. I'm scared to death, whispered Mrs. Jackman. Hundreds of people are looking at us. Cheer up. Mrs. Servo, this is fun. Unload your pig, please, said the loudspeaker. All together now, boys, said Mr. Jackman. Several men stepped forward from the crowd to help lift the crate. Avery was the busiest helper of all. Tuck your shirt in, Avery, cried Mrs. Jackman, and tighten your belt. Your pants are coming down. Can't you see I'm busy? Replied Avery in disgust. Look, cried Bun, pointing. There's Henry. Don't shout, Bun, said her mother, and don't point. Can I please have some money? Asked Fun. Henry invited me to go on the Ferris wheel again, only I don't think he has any money left. He ran out of money. Mrs. Settlebell opened the handbag. Here, she said. Here is 40 cents. Now don't get lost and be back at our regular meeting place by the pig pen very soon. Fun raced off, ducking and dodging through the crowd in search of Henry. The Jackman pig is now being taken from his crate. Boomed the voice of the loudspeaker. Stand by for an announcement. Tapton crouched under the straw at the bottom of the crate. What a lot of nonsense, muttered the rat. What a lot of fuss about nothing. Over in the pig pen, silent and alone, Charlotte rested. Her two front legs embraced the egg sack. Charlotte could hear everything that was said on the loudspeaker. The words gave her courage. This was her hour of triumph. As Wilbur came out of the crate, the crowd clapped and cheered. Mr. Jackman took off his cap and bowed. Larby pulled his big handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the sweat from the back of his neck. Avery knelt in the dirt by Wilbur's side, busily stroking him and showing off. Mrs. Jackman and Mrs. Arable stood on the running board of the truck. Ladies and gentlemen, said the loudspeaker, we now present Mr. Homer, our Jackman's distinguished pig. The fame of this unique animal has spread to the far corners of the earth, attracting many valuable tourists to our great state. Many of you will recall that never-to-be-forgotten day last summer when the writing appeared mysteriously on the spiders wrapped in Mr. Jackman's barn, calling the attention of all and sundry to the fact that this pig was completely out of the ordinary. The miracle has never been fully explained, although learned men have visited the Jackman pig pen to study and observe the phenomenon. In the last analysis, we simply know that we are dealing with supernatural forces here, and we should all feel proud and grateful. In the words of the spider's web, ladies and gentlemen, this is the sun pig. Wilbur blushed. He stood perfectly still and tried to look his best. This magnificent animal, continued the loudspeaker, is truly terrific. Look at him, ladies and gentlemen. Note the smoothness and whiteness of the coat. Observe the spotless skin and the healthy pink glow of ears and snout. It's the buttermilk, whispered Mrs. Arable to Mrs. Jackman. Note the general radiance of this animal. Then remember the day when the word radiant appeared clearly on the web. Whence came this mysterious writing? Now from the spider, we can rest assured of that. Spiders are very clever weaving the webs, but needless to say, spiders cannot write. Oh, they can, can't they? Murmured Charlotte to herself. Ladies and gentlemen, I must not take any more of your valuable time. On behalf of the governors of the fair, I have the honor of awarding a special prize of $25 to Mr. Zuckerman, together with a handsome bronze medal suitably engraved in token of our appreciation of the part played by this pig, this radiant, this terrific, this humble pig, in attracting so many visitors to our great county fair. Wilbur had been feeling dizzier and dizzier to this long complimentary speech when he heard the crowd begin to cheer and clap again. He suddenly fainted away. His legs collapsed. His mind went blank. He fell to the ground, unconscious. "What's wrong?" asked the loudspeaker. "What's going on, Zuckerman? What's the trouble with your pig?" Abby was kneeling by Wilbur's head, stroking him. Mr. Zuckerman was dancing about. "He's all right. He gets this spell. He's modest and can't stand praise." "Well, we can't give a prize to a dead pig," said the loudspeaker. "It's never been done." "He isn't dead. He's fainted. He gets embarrassed easily. Run for some water, Lurby." Lurby sprang from the judge's ring and disappeared. Templeton poked his head from the straw and noticed that end of Wall's tail was within reach. Templeton grinned. "Attend to this," he chuckled. He took Wilbur's tail in his mouth and bit it. "Ouch!" he screamed. He was back on his feet. "Hooray!" yelled the crowd. "He's up. The pig is up. Good work, Zuckerman. That's some pig." Delighted, Mr. Zuckerman was the most pleased of all. He sighed with relief. Nobody had seen Templeton. The rat had done his work well. Now one of the judges climbed into the ring with the prizes. He handed Mr. Zuckerman two $10 bills and a $5 bill, and he tied the medal around the Wilbur's neck. Then he shook hands with Mrs. Zuckerman while Wilbur blushed. Everybody put out his hand, and the judge shook hands with him too. Crowd cheered. The photograph took Wilbur's picture. Great feeling of happiness swept over the Zuckermans and the Arable. This was the greatest moment in Mr. Zuckerman's life. It is deeply satisfying to win a prize in front of a lot of people. As Wilbur was being shoved back into the crate, Lurby came charging through the crowd. Carrying a pail of water, his eyes had a wild look. Without hesitating a second, he dashed the water at Wilbur. In his excitement, he missed his aim, and the water splashed all over Mr. Zuckerman and Avery. They got soaking wet. "For goodness sake," bellowed Mr. Zuckerman, was really drenched. "What ails you, Lurby? Can't you see the pig is all right?" "You asked for water," said Lurby meekly. "I didn't ask for a shower bath." The crowd roared with laughter. Finally, Mr. Zuckerman had to laugh too, and of course, Avery was tickled to find himself so wet, and he immediately started to act like a clown. He pretended he was taking a shower bath. He made faces and danced around and rubbed imaginary soap under his armpit. Then he dried himself with an imaginary towel. "Every stop it," cried his mother. "Stop showing off." But the crowd loved it. Every heard nothing but the applause. He liked being a clown in a ring, with everybody watching in front of a grandstand. When he discovered there was still a little water left in the bottom of the pail, he raised the pail high in the air and dumped the water on himself and made faces. The children in the grandstand screamed with appreciation. At last things calmed down. Wilbur was loaded into the truck. Avery was led from the ring by his mother and placed on the seat of the truck to dry off. The truck, driven by Mr. Arable, crawled slowly back to the pig pen. Avery's wet trousers made a big wet spot on the seat. Chapter 21, Last Day. Charlotte and Wilbur were alone. The Emilys had gone to look for fun. Templeton was asleep. Wilbur lay resting after the excitement and strain of the ceremony. His medal still hung from his neck. By looking out of the corner of his eye, he could see it. "Charlotte," said Wilbur after a while, "why are you so quiet?" "I like to sit still," she said. "I've always been rather quiet." "Yes, but you seem especially so today. Do you feel all right?" "A little tired, perhaps, but I feel peaceful. Your success in the ring this morning was to a small degree my success. Your future is assured. You will live secure and safe, Wilbur. Nothing can harm you now. These autumn days will shorten and grow cold. The leaves will shake loose from the trees and fall. Christmas will come. When the snows of winter, you'll live to enjoy the beauty of the frozen world. For you mean a great deal to Jukuman, and he will not harm you ever. Winter will pass, days will lengthen, ice will melt in the pasture pond, song sparrow will return as the frogs will awake, the warm wind will blow again, all these sights and sounds and smells will be yours to enjoy. Over this lovely world, these precious days, Charlotte stopped. A moment later, tear came to Wilbur's eye. Oh, Charlotte, to think that when I first met you, I thought you were cruel and bloodthirsty. When he recovered from his emotion, he spoke again. Why did you do all this for me? He asked. I don't deserve it. I have never done anything for you. You've been my friend, replied Charlotte. That in itself is a tremendous thing. I wove my webs for you because I liked you. After all, what's a life, anyway? We are born, we live a little while, we die. Spider's life can help being something of a mess. With all this trapping and eating fly, by helping you, perhaps I was trying to lift up my life for a trifle. Heaven knows anyone's life can stand a little of that. Well, said Wilbur, I'm not good at making speeches. I haven't got your gift for words, but you have saved me. Charlotte, and I would gladly give my life for you. I really would. I'm sure you would, and I thank you for your generous sentiments. Charlotte, said Wilbur, we are all going home today. The fair is almost over. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be back home in the barn cellar again with the sheep and the geese? Aren't you anxious to get home? For a moment, Charlotte said nothing. Then she spoke in a voice so low, Wilbur could hardly hear the words. I will not be going back to the barn, she said. Wilbur leapt to his feet. Not going back? He cried. Charlotte, what are you talking about? I'm done for. She replied, in a day or two, I'll be dead. I haven't even strength enough to climb down into the crate. I doubt if I have enough silk in my spinneret to lower me to the ground. Hearing this, Wilbur threw himself down in an agony of pain and sorrow. Great sobs racked his body. He heaved and grunted with desolation. Charlotte, Charlotte, my true friend, come now, let's not make a scene, said the spider. Be quiet, Wilbur. Stop thrashing about, but I can't stand it. I won't leave you here alone to die. If you're going to stay here, I shall stay too. Don't be ridiculous, said Charlotte. You can't stay here. Jokerman and Lurby and John Arable and the others will be back any minute now, and they will shove you into that crate. Away you will go. Besides, it wouldn't make any sense for you to stay. There would be no one to feed you. The fairgrounds will soon be empty and deserted. Wilbur was in a panic. He raced around the pen. Then he thought of the egg sack and 514 little spiders that would hatch in the spring. Charlotte herself was unable to go home to the barn. At least he must take her children along. But rushed to the front of his pen, he put his front feet up on the top board and gazed around. In the distance, he saw the Arabos and the Jacomans approaching. He knew he would have to act quickly. Where's Templeton? He demanded. He's in that corner, under the straw, asleep. Wilbur rushed over, pushed his strong snout under the rat, and tossed him into the air. Templeton, pay attention. What kind of monkey ship is this? He growled. Can a rat catch a wink of sleep without being rudely popped into the air? Listen to me. Charlotte is very ill. She has only a short time to live. She cannot accompany us home because of her condition. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary that I take her egg sack with me. I can reach it and I can climb. You are the only one that can get it. There is not a second to be lost. The people are coming. They'll be here in no time. Please, 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 Templeton, climb up and get the egg sack. The rat yawned. He straightened his whiskers. Then he looked up at the egg sack. So, it's all Templeton to the rescue again, is it? Templeton do this, Templeton do that. Templeton, please run down to the dump and get me a magazine clipping. Templeton, please send me a piece of string so I can spin a web. Oh, hurry. Hurry up, Templeton. But the rat was in no hurry. He began imitating Wilbur's voice. So, it's hurry up, Templeton. Is it ho ho? And what thanks do I ever get for this service? I would like to know. Never a kind word for old Templeton. Only abuse and wisecracks and side remarks. Never a kind word for a rat. Templeton, if you don't stop talking and get busy, all will be lost and I will die of a broken heart. Please climb up. Templeton lay back in the straw. Lazily, he placed his forepaws behind his head and crossed his knees in an attitude of complete relaxation. Die of a broken heart? How touching. My. I noticed that it's always me you come to when in trouble, but I have never heard of anyone's heart breaking on my account. Oh no, who cares anything about old Templeton? Get up. Stop acting like a spoiled child. Templeton grinned and lay still. Who made trip after trip to the dump, he asked. Why was old Templeton who saved Charlotte's life by scaring that animal boy away with the rotten goose egg? Bless my soul, I believe it was old Templeton who beat your tail and got you back on your feet this morning after you had fainted in front of the crowd. Old Templeton, has it ever occurred to you that I'm sick of running errands and doing favors? What do you think I'm, anyway, a rat of all work? Wilbur was desperate. The people were coming, and the rat was failing him. Suddenly he remembered Templeton's fondness for food. Templeton, I'll make you a solemn promise. Get Charlotte's egg from me, and from now on, I will let you eat first. When Larvae slaps me, I will let you have your choice of everything in the trough. I won't touch a thing until you're through. The rat said, you mean that? I promise. I crossed my heart. All right. It's a deal, said the rat. He walked to the wall, started to climb. His stomach was still swollen from last night's gorge. Groaning and complaining, he pulled himself slowly to the ceiling, crept along till he reached the exit. Charlotte moved aside from him, just dying, but she still had strength enough to move a little. Then Templeton bared his long, ugly teeth and began snipping the threads that fastened the sack to the ceiling. Wilbur watched from below. Use extreme care, he said. I don't want a single one of those eggs harmed. This stuff sticks in my mouth, complained the rat. It's worse than caramel candy. But Templeton walked away at the job and managed to cut the sack adrift and carry it to the ground, where he dropped it in front of Wilbur. Wilbur heaved a great sigh of relief. Thank you. I will never forget this as long as I live. Neither will I, said the rat, picking his teeth. I feel as though I had eaten a spool of thread. Well, home we go. Templeton crept into the crate, buried himself in the straw. He got out of sight just in time. Larvae and John Arable and Mr. Jackman came along at that moment, followed by Mrs. Arable and Mrs. Jackman and Avery and Fawn. Wilbur had already decided how he would carry the egg sack. There was only one way possible. He carefully took the little bundle in his mouth and held it there on top of his tongue. He remembered what Charlotte had told him, that the sack was waterproof and strong. It felt funny on his tongue and made him drool a bit, and of course, he couldn't say anything, but as he was being shoved into the crate, he looked up at Charlotte and gave her a wink. She knew he was saying goodbye in the only way she could. She knew her children were safe. Goodbye, she whispered. Then she summoned all her strength and waved one of her front legs at him. She never moved again. Next day, as the Ferris wheel was being taken apart and the racehorses were being loaded into vans and entertainers were packing up their belongings, driving away in the trailer, Charlotte died. The fairgrounds were soon deserted. The sheds and buildings were empty and forlorn. The infield was littered with bottles and trash. Nobody of the hundreds of people that had visited the fair knew that a gray spider had played the most important part of all. No one was with her when she died. Chapter 22. A warm wind. And so Wilbur came home to his beloved manure pile in the barn cellar. His was a strange homecoming. Around his neck, he wore the Medal of Honor. In his mouth, he held a sack of spider's eggs. There's no place like home, Wilbur thought, as he placed Charlotte's 514 unborn children carefully in a safe corner. The barn smelled good. His friends, the sheep and the geese, were glad to see him back. The geese gave him a noisy welcome. Congratulations, Congratulations, they cried. Nice work. Mr. Jackman took the medal from Wilbur's neck and hung it on a nail over the pig pen, where visitors could examine it. Wilbur himself could look at it whenever he wanted to. In the days that followed, he was very happy. He grew to a great size. He no longer worried about being killed, for he knew that Mr. Zuckerman would keep him as long as he lived. Wilbur often thought of Charlotte. A few strands of her old web still hung in the doorway. Every day, Wilbur would stand there and look at the torn, empty web, and a lump would come to his throat. No one had ever had such a friend, so affectionate, so loyal, and so skillful. The autumn days grew shorter. Larby brought the squashes and pumpkins and from the garden and piled them on the barn floor, but they wouldn't get nipped on frosty night. The maples and birches turned a bright color, and the wind shook them, and they dropped the leaves one by one to the ground. Under the wild apple trees in the pasture, the red little apples lay thick on the ground, and the sheep gnawed them, and the geese gnawed them, and foxes came in the night and snipped them. One evening, just before Christmas, snow began falling. It covered house and barn and fields and woods. Wilbur had never seen such snow before. When morning came, he went out and plowed the drift in his yard. For the fun of it, Fern and Avery arrived, dragging a sled. They coasted down the lane and out onto the frozen pond in the pasture. Coasting is the most fun there is, said Avery. The most fun there is, retorted Fern, is when the Ferris wheel stops and Henry and I are in the top car, and Henry makes the car swing and we can see everything for miles and miles and miles. Goodness, are you still thinking about that old Ferris wheel? Said Avery in disgust. The fair was weeks and weeks ago. I think about it all the time, said Fern, picking snow from her ear. After Christmas, the thermometer dropped to 10 below zero. The cold settled on the world. The pasture was bleak and frozen. The cows stayed in the barn all the time, except on sunny mornings when they went out and stood in the barnyard in the lee of the straw pile. The sheep stayed near the pond too for protection. When they were thirsty, they ate snow. The geese hung around the barnyard the way boys hang around the drugstore, and Mr. Zuckerman fed them corn and turnips to keep them cheerful. Many, 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 many thanks, they always said when they saw food coming. Templeton moved indoors when winter came. His ready home under the pig trough was too chilly, so he fixed himself a cozy net in the barn behind the grain bin. He lined it with bits of dirty newspaper and rags, and whenever he found the trinket or the keepsake, he carried it home and stored it there. He continued to visit Wilbur 3 times a day, exactly at midtime, and Wilbur kept the promise he had made. Wilbur let the rat eat first. Then when Templeton couldn't hold another mouthful, Wilbur would eat. As a result of overeating, Templeton grew bigger and fatter than any rat you ever saw. He was gigantic. He was as big as a young woodchuck. The old sheep spoke to him about his size one day. You would live longer, said the old sheep, if you ate less. Who wants to live forever? I'm naturally a heavy eater. I get untold satisfaction from the pleasure of this feast. He patted his stomach, grinned at the sheep, and crept upstairs to lie down. All winter, Wilbur watched over Charlotte's egg as though he were guarding his own children. He had scooped out a special place in the manure for the sack next to the board vent. On very cold nights, he lay so that his breath would warm it. For Wilbur, nothing in life was so important as this small round object. Nothing else mattered. Patiently he awaited the end of winter and the coming of the little spider. Life is always a rich and steady time when you are waiting for something to happen or to hatch. The winter ended at last. I heard the frogs today, said the old sheep. One evening, listen, you can hear them now. Wilbur stood still and cocked his ears. From the pond, in shrill chorus, came the voice of hundreds of little frogs. Springtime, said the old sheep thoughtfully. Another spring. As she walked away, Wilbur saw a new lamb following her. It was only a few hours old. The snows melted and ran away. The streams and ditches bubbled and chattered with rushing water. A sparrow with a streaky breast arrived and sang. The light strengthened and the mornings came sooner. Almost every morning there was another new lamp in the shipboard. The goose was sitting on 9 eggs. The sky seemed whiter, and a warm wind blew. The last remaining strands of Charlotte's old web that floated away and vanished. One fine sunny morning after breakfast, Wilbur stood watching his precious sack. He wasn't thinking of anything much. As he stood there, he noticed something move. He stepped closer and stared. Tiny spider crawled from the sack. It was no bigger than a grain of sand, no bigger than the head of a pin. His body was gray with a black stripe underneath. Its legs were gray and tan. It looked just like Charlotte. Wilbur trembled all over when he saw it. The little spider waved at him. Then Wilbur looked more closely. 2 more little spiders crawled out and waved. They climbed round and round on the sack, exploring their new world. Then 3 more little spiders. Then 8, 10. Charlotte's children were here at last. Wilbur's heart pounded. He began to squeal. Then he raced in circles, kicking manure into the air. Then he turned the back flip. Then he planted his front feet and came to stop in front of Charlotte's children. "Hello there," he said. The first spider said hello, but its voice was so small, Wilbur couldn't hear it. "I'm an old friend of your mother's," said Mother. "I'm glad to see you, and are you all right? Is everything all right?" Little spiders waved their forelegs at him. Wilbur could see, by the way, they acted that they were glad to see him. "Is there anything I can get you? Is there anything?" The young spider just waved. For several days and several nights, they crawled here and there, up and down, around and about, waving. Trailing tiny drag lines behind them, exploring their home. There were dozens and dozens of them. Wilbur couldn't count them, but he knew that he had a great many new friends. They grew quite rapidly. Soon each was as big as a BB shot. They made tiny webs near the sack. Then came a quiet morning when Mr. Zuckerman opened the door on the north side. It smelled of the dampers, of the spruce woods, of the sweet springtime. Baby spiders felt the warm updraft. One spider climbed to the top of the fence. Then it did something that came as a great surprise to Wilbur. The spider stood on its head, pointed its spinnerets in the air, and let loose a cloud of fine silk, the silk from the balloon. As Wilbur watched, the spider let go of the fence and rose into the air. "Goodbye," he said as it sailed through the doorway. "Wait a minute. Where do you think you're going?" But the spider was already out of sight. Another baby spider crawled to the top of the fence, stood on its head, made a balloon, and sailed away. Then another. The air was soon filled with tiny balloons, each balloon carrying a spider. Wilbur was frantic. Charlotte's babies were disappearing at a great rate. "Come back, children. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye." At last, one little spider took time enough to stop and talk to Wilbur before making its balloon. "We are leaving here on the warm updraft. This is our moment for setting forth. We are astronauts, and we're going out into the world to make webs for ourselves. But where? Wherever the wind takes us, high, low, near, far, east, west, north, south, we take to the breeze. We go as we please. Are all of you going? You can't all go. I would be left alone with no friends. Your mother wouldn't want that to happen, I'm sure. It was now so full of balloonists that the bond seller looked almost as though a mist had gathered. Balloons by the dozen were rising, circling, and drifting away through the door, sailing off on the gentle wind. Cries of goodbye, goodbye, goodbye came weakly to Wilbur's ears. He couldn't bear to watch anymore. In sorrow, he sank to the ground and closed his eye. It seemed like the end of the world, to be deserted by Charlotte's children. Wilbur cried himself to sleep. When he woke, it was late afternoon. He looked at the egg-sack. It was empty. He looked into the air. The balloonists were gone. Then he walked drearily to the doorway, where Charlotte's Web used to be. He was standing there thinking of her, when he heard a small voice. "Salutation," he said. "I'm up here." "So am I," said another tiny voice. "So am I," said a third voice. "Three of us staying. We like this place and we like you." Wilbur looked up. At the top of the doorway, 3 small webs were being constructed. On each web, working busily, was one of Charlotte's daughters. "Can I take this to mean that you have definitely decided to live here in the barn cellar? That I'm going to have 3 friends?" "You can indeed," said the spiders. "What are your names, please?" "I'll tell you my name," replied the first little spider. "If you tell me why you're trembling." "I'm trembling with joy." "Then my name is Joy." "What was my mother's middle initial?" "Second." "A," said Wilbur. "Then my name is Erania," said the spider. "How about me? Will you just pick out a nice sensible name for me? Something not too long, not too fancy, and not too dumb?" Wilbur thought hard. "Nellie," he suggested. "Fine, I like that very much. You may call me Nellie." She daintily fastened the orb line to the next spoke of the web. Wilbur's heart brimmed with happiness. He felt that he should make a short speech on this very important occasion. "Joy, Erania, Nellie began. Welcome to the barn cellar. You have chosen a hello doorway from which to string your webs. I think it is only fair enough to tell you that I was devoted to your mother. I owe my very life to her. She was brilliant, beautiful, and loyal to the end. I shall always treasure her memory. To you, her daughters, I pledge my friendship forever and ever." "I pledge mine." "I do too." "And so do I," said Nellie, who had just managed to catch a small nut. It was a happy day for Wilbur, and many more happy, tranquil days followed. As time went on, and the months and the years came and went, he was never without a friend. Fun did not come regularly to the barn anymore. She was growing up and was careful to avoid childish things like sitting on a milk stool near the pack. But Charlotte's children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren year after year lived in the doorway. Each spring there were new little spiders hatching out to take the place of the old. Most of them sailed away, but always 2 or 3 stayed and set up housekeeping in the doorway. Mr. Zuckerman took fine care of Wilbur all the rest of his days, and the pig was often visited by friends and admirers, for nobody ever forgot the year of his triumph and the miracle of the web. Life in the barn was very good, night and day, winter and summer, spring and fall, dull days and bright days. It was the best place to be, it thought Wilbur. That warm, delicious cellar with the garrulous geese, the changing season, the heat of the sun, the passage of swallows, the newness of rats, sameness of sheep, the love of spiders, the smell of manure, and the glory of everything. Wilbur never forget Charlotte. Although he loved the children and grandchildren dearly, none of the new spiders ever quite took a place in his heart. She was in a class by herself. It is not often that someone comes along who is a true friend and a good writer. Charlotte was both. The end.